Good morning, Middle Tennessee. I'm Cameron Smith. Now I guess I'm filling in for Chris Hand.
I guess that's it.
I mean, that's tough to follow. After the last couple of hours with a robust discussion of toilet paper, the various sizes of pencils, I honestly had not thought about anything but a number 2 pencil, and the idea of a number 1 pencil is like, wait, what?
Yeah, what?
Y'all are in for a treat. Y'all are in for a great show. We've got Mac Maury. So with Mac in the house, this can't go wrong. With me in the house,
gosh.
Possibly. It was a beautiful morning coming in. I had my overnight oats with some almonds, sprouted almonds on top.
Ooh, look at you.
It was like cold, mushy gravel. I'm convincing myself it's delicious.
Being healthy rocks.
Yes. My gut biome. Like what? What are we talking about?
What is that?
My wonderful sister-in-law, she's into all the things. She's the latest thing that she's against is sucralose. Artificial sweeteners.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Yes.
I remember years ago, the reason I take some of this stuff seriously is because I'm thinking about cereal because I would rather have Fruit Loops.
Trying to be ethereal.
But my sister-in-law is on sucralose, but I remember years ago, there was, I think it's called Alestra, that they were putting in chips, right, to make them crunchy and somehow healthier. I don't know.
Okay.
But it caused a leaky bottom. Like that was literally anal leakage was a thing that it caused. And ever since then, I've been like, I should probably read these ingredients and make sure that it doesn't cause any unsightly leakage.
Take a gander there.
That's rough. Okay. Couple of things that we're going to talk about today. The first is white nationalism. Tommy Tuberville stuck his foot in his mouth again. But his point that he failed to explain was a salient one. And it's how the left and the media have weaponized some of these clearly defined terms and applied them to groups like Moms for Liberty. The Klan and the mom who opposes critical race theory at a school board meeting are not the same. But for cheap political points, some folks have said, you know what? I'm going to take my shot and refer to them as hate groups, white nationalists, yay, rah. Unfortunately, in this situation, we'll get to it in a minute, Senator Tuberville out of Alabama said white nationalists are Americans. I mean, I guess some of them, I guess that's technically true, but he looked like he was defending white nationalism, which seems super weird, and the left had a field day with it. We'll go over that. We'll talk about that a little bit in detail. Got some good news. I'm going to start engaging the Tennessean on the editorial board. So I get it. We joke about it sometimes as I'm in as the man off the bench for Team Super Talk, that I am over in a closet over at the Tennessean and the USA Today Network. That's not actually true. I don't think they have that many closets. But they do care about incorporating a lot of different views, and specifically one that's more conservative. And I think that's encouraging. It's something I'm very excited about and happy to join and engage with them in a deeper way. The good news is you'll be able to read a lot more of my stuff over at the Tennessean and the papers around the state and on the USA Today Network. So I'm super excited about that. I want to thank everybody that came out to the Sounds game. They were rebranded as the Hot Chickens last week on Friday night. And my boys and I were out at the game, and they were like, Dad, where are the Sounds? There's this team called the Hot Chickens. And I think it was a promo with Prince's Hot Chicken or something.
Yes.
Love Hot Chicken, but I was so confused. But we had a
great name.
Great time out there. That venue's incredible just to hang out, right? It is a great hangout place. you haven't given it a shot, you definitely should.
Oh, man, perfect for the kids. I mean, that's just a blast.
They just wandered. I don't know
Yeah,
that
of
they
course.
really watched the game. They just wandered around for several hours. So thank you for folks that said hi. I recognize it's very hard to. Some of y'all are online. Some of you are watching the video feed, so you have some sense of what I look like. It's just imagine like a hairless mountain gorilla, and it's pretty close. That's I think a good way to describe me. But it dawned on me that like folks that hear my voice and talk on the air, like you might not know what I look like. So appreciate folks finding and saying hi anyway. Okay. Please don't hesitate to call in and comment. There's Ray. Ray's in there. Ray beats me to the punch every time. And I love that Ray is on the Super Talk text line, 615-737-9986. You can call in or text in. Pick your poison. Doesn't matter. Love to have you joining the conversation. Ray is, if he does not come on and call me Cameron Romney, he can't decide what order he likes, whether it's Cameron Conway Romney or Cameron Romney.
Oh.
I don't know how he's going to incorporate Lindsey Graham and maybe John McCain. I get what he's saying is that, rhinos are gross.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I don't really know what that is. I want to be effective conservative as opposed to just being directionally loud and having no one listen to me and let Joe Biden beat me. So, Ray, I love you, my friend. Thank you. And I agree. Ray actually made an important point, and we'll jump into this talk about white nationalism, because let me put a fine point on that in case anyone's confused. White supremacy, white nationalism, racism shouldn't be given quarter in American society. Period. End of discussion. Full stop. We don't have to belabor this point. If you are looking at somebody and the color of their skin and nothing else and saying, based on the color of your skin, I'm going to wish you ill or try to isolate you or oppress you. No is the answer. We don't do that. In fact, this is something that we've talked about a lot. This is why I have such a problem with the demographic. I don't even know what to call them, but I mean, they're the cultural Marxists, right? They're the people that say, I'm going to label you with a label. It can be LGBTQ plus, it can be black, it can be white, it can be evangelical, it can be whatever. But we pick a label, and then everyone in label is same. That is the dumbest thing ever. That's not how life works. When you guys walk around in your communities, when I'm coaching football over at Nolensville Park, there are people with broadly different beliefs and ideas and perspectives and life experiences, and they don't fall cleanly along any line. They just don't. And I think this is where particularly the left wants to have these convenient narratives that they spin, and then it doesn't work. And Ray's point is that white nationalism or a white nationalist is not the same thing as a white supremacist. Bear with me a minute. I'm going to nerd out on you a little bit. A white nationalist specifically is supportive of a white ethno-state. What's an ethno-state? It's basically that the governing entity is in support of the alleged interest of white people, which I frankly have no idea what that is, because we can see that white people vote differently. They have all kinds of belief. Everything's different. There's not one sort of broad stroke that you can use to paint all white people any more than black, Hispanic, Asian, whatever. The problem here is that we get sort of in these semantic arguments. So a white nationalist wants the state to be basically in favor of white people. A white supremacist believes that white people as a race are on a higher order than other races, right? So you could theoretically believe in a white nation and not actually believe that white people are inherently superior. I know that sounds weird, but the terms are distinct and not necessarily interchangeable. But what is inextricably connected to white nationalism is racism. The term means nothing if you say, well, a white nationalist, they might have other ideas. And I want to quote it because I think it's really important to get Tuberville's quote right here, because I don't want to put words in his mouth on something that's this important. Let's see, I'm going to pull it up. My opinion of a white nationalist, this is quote, my opinion of a white nationalist, if somebody wants to call them a white nationalist, to me, is an American. It's an American. Now, if that white nationalist is a racist, I'm totally against anything they want to do because I'm 110% against racism. He's just not good at media, folks. I don't have any reason to believe that Tommy Tuberville is an ardent advocate of white nationalism, a white supremacist. What he was trying to say is that Democrats ultimately, in the context of the interview, not in that specific quote, but in the context of the interview, that Democrats misapply this to a lot of different groups. He didn't say that. It looked like he was saying that there's basically some really good white nationalists. And based on the common usage of that term, that's just not true. That's just not true. And yes, I can separate the terms individually. There's nothing inherently wrong about saying, well, I'm a nationalist, and by that I mean I really love America, right? Like, okay, fine. And I'm white. And so if you put the terms together, you could say, well, I just happen to be a person with this skin color who loves America. But when you put them together, the common usage is not that. The common usage is I'm a racist who wants a white ethno-state. And so we need to be really clear about that's the common usage of the term, and you need to just say no and stop playing these games. Here's what happened. Tuberville goes on to Caitlin Collins' show on CNN. First of all, in a state like Alabama or Tennessee, nobody who elects a senator is going to be like, well, I'd vote for him again, but they need to be on CNN more. Like, that's not a thing. Like, this is not necessary. You don't have to go on CNN or MSNBC or even Fox News, because relatively speaking, very few voters are going to see you on there, and you're not really going to get much juice for the squeeze. And particularly if you know that they're adverse to your position, which Tuberville absolutely knew that. He knew that his hold on military confirmations is not popular with the hosts at CNN. They know he knows that they're going to try to get him on areas where he's slipped up before. And he goes on there nevertheless, knowing that he's not great at media. In case some of you guys were wondering, it's really hard to do things live and not screw it up. Most people can't do that. They can't go on and just riff and do well. Some politicians can. A lot can. I want to finish this conversation because it's really important that we get this right so we don't give Democrats a tool to just beat conservatives to death with. I'm Cameron Smith, and you're listening to Super Talk 99.7.
got a crash in the way in Madison. It is backing up both directions of Old Hickory Boulevard between 65 and Gallatin Pike. And the benchmark report on inflation in the U.S. is out. We'll tell you what details there are at 9:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Welcome back, y'all. I'm Cameron Smith, and this is Super Talk 99.7. Appreciate you guys joining the conversation. 615-737-9986 and online with our various media feeds. Some of the comments from the viewers on the social media feeds were that, well, why don't you understand that the media is going to make conservatives look bad? They hate this, they hate that. Agreed. It's the same way that on talk radio and Fox News and other conservative outlets, we're not exactly charitable to a lot of the liberal viewpoints, right? I get that. We shouldn't have unforced errors. Unforced errors are when you know you're not the best on media, you know you're not the best live on your feet, you should absolutely not go on CNN in a hostile environment. That's not a thing. That is staffing malpractice to send Tuberville into that. He's a good senator. He's fine. On policy, his policies align quite well with conservative voters, particularly with folks in Alabama. Even his hold on military confirmations for military leaderships. A lot of folks in Alabama really love that. But when he puts his foot in his mouth, here's what happened. I'll read these headlines. These were literally scrolling by like a waterfall on the Google News search results. CNN, Tuberville refuses to denounce white nationalism in military, doubles down on past comments. Washington Post, Senator Tommy Tuberville refuses to agree white nationalists are racist. Newsweek, Tommy Tuberville says the definition of white nationalism is a, quote, opinion. And this is my favorite. CNN anchors spend morning asking Republicans if white nationalists are racist. That's exactly the problem. When there's these unforced errors, then what the media does is they take those comments and then they go to everybody else and say, hey, are you going to defend your person here? You going to defend your fellow Republican, or are you going to tell us that he's an idiot? Thankfully, McConnell, Alabama's other senator, Katie Britt, John Thune, plenty of the Senate colleagues just said racism, white nationalism have no place in American society, full stop. And they kind of started to put that to bed. But the media is going to do that. We know that. And so when Republicans are left explaining, in politics there's a saying, if you're explaining, you're losing. Well, explaining what Tuberville really meant is not helpful for conservatives. In fact, Republicans want Democrats to have to explain what Joe Biden really meant. He said so many things that it's clear that he's in a state of decline publicly. I'm not just conjecturing and saying, well, I'm reading. Look, there have been so many instances lately where he has looked mentally and physically frail and infirm and said things that made no sense. And I want Democrats to have to explain why he's still a great option for president. That's what I want to spend my time doing, not explaining that that Republicans believe white nationalism is racism. Like, that's not good for Republicans. And so this is the hard part, to tell a politician, man, you're not, I'll use an example. When I was in college in my fraternity, there were some of our fraternity brothers we loved dearly, and they got to stay on the third floor during parties. I mean, we were just like, hey, so we'll set you up with some video games up there, bring you some food. Why don't you hang out up here?
Yeah, go over there, buddy.
Right.
All right, we'll see ya.
Yeah, and they were great dudes. Nobody thought that they were bad, but they didn't really want to do this stuff, but they felt forced to, so we were just like, go have fun. We'll give you pizza. And it worked out great. Same thing with Republicans. Like, some of you, good on your feet. Some of you excellent in live spots. Some of you should not. You should just be great politicians and not be in the media limelight. But that's really hard for these super egos to accept that, like, maybe I'm just bad at this. And it's okay. Not everybody is good at it. In fact, most people aren't. But when we have somebody like Tuberville that's repeatedly has had these gaffes, and that's what they are. The left, it's like, he's in league with the Klan. No, he's not. He's just bad at media. And so Republicans, Mitch McConnell should tap him on the shoulder and say, hey, you know what? You're doing great work for veterans. You're doing great. How about we tone down the you on CNN ever? And that's what Republicans have to do. And I know people don't like that. I know they get upset. But the goal here should be consistent. We want to put the pressure on Democrats, on folks who don't share our perspectives so that we can have more capacity to govern. It shouldn't be, let's pass the mic around and let everybody talk, because frankly, some Republicans are just really bad at it, and they say offensive things, and they don't mean it the way it comes across, but they're not great communicators. So that the left will pounce on that, and they will slam us, and we are not going to like the results, because that way Joe Biden gets to hide in the basement.
So instead, grab a slice of pizza and play some Mario Kart.
Yes. Well, for that demographic, probably solitaire is
that's probably it.
That's more my speed.
Yeah. Well, and give him a lot of number 2 pencils, right? Like number 2s, not 1 or 3, number 2s. All right, y'all, we got to take a break. I'm Cameron Smith, and you're listening to Super Talk 99.7.
I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. And again, you've got Old Hickory Boulevard pretty backed up both directions due to a crash in Madison. It's going to be between 65 and Gallatin Pike. The benchmark report on inflation in the U.S. showing signs the rate of price increases is slowing down. The Consumer Price Index last month rose 3% compared to last year. It's lower than many analysts were expecting, and it's the smallest yearly increase since March of 2021. Right now in Tennessee, Franklin police reaching out to the Hispanic and Latino community to encourage alleged victims in the soccer coach rape case to come forward. Anel Flores runs a website, tells News 2 there are trust issues.
As a Hispanic community, most of the times we are just really afraid from the police. We talk police, we said police, and that word for us is like shock.
But Flores says once she posted about this case to her website and social media pages, people started coming forward. She thinks more victims will too. That's the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
Hi, I'm Paul Winkler. What's one of the biggest mistakes that I find that investors make? Well, it's typically buying based on past performance. We look at our 401k, we try to decide which fund should I buy, and tend to look at historical past performance over 3, 5, and you even hear investment advisors telling people to look at 3, 5, and 10-year track records. Problem is that what do markets do? They go up and they go down. Well, where did this have a great past performance? Here to here. So we end up buying high. We found that there was one study back in 1986, and it was called the Brinson-Hooden-Biebauer study. And they were looking at what drove investment returns more than anything else. And the study sort of looked like this. They said, stock selection, about 4% of investment differences were due to stock selection. About 2% was due to market timing differences. Asset mix, asset allocation, that was the big deal. Now, what they found, which was fascinating, was that when the pension plans engaged in these two activities, in one study it showed that 100% of the time, investment returns were lower and it increased risk. Not something you want when you're an investor. So this is something that we teach investors to help them sidestep some of these issues. Now, if you want to learn more about our approach to investing in financial planning, go to paulwinkler.com and set up a free 15-minute phone call. Or you can call 615-851-1950.
And it's a mad, mad world on this Wednesday. Man, look at the headlines, and it's not too far of a reach to get there.
No.
Matt Murphy's wandering around the studio looking like a retired baseball player whose glory days, kind of like the Uncle Rico of baseball.
Yes.
It's like, man, I used to be able to throw it 90. And that's what I expect him to say. He'll be on following this show. And I'm always excited what my friend Matt has to say. He's going to talk about this too, because we got to stop playing these word games with the left. We just do. They've decided, and this is what Southern Poverty Law Center, other folks, they do hate groups and all of these things, the concerning ideologies. And yeah, sure, there's some views like white supremacy or just overt racism. Yeah, those are indeed concerning. But what they do and what happens is they say, well, we know there are organizations like the Ku Klux Klan with a history of violence and discrimination. And so that's like super bad, right? Nobody's raising their hand and saying, I'm with those guys. But to score political points, if you can rope in other people in the same bucket and say, you live in a bucket with the Klan, then folks will take a really jaundiced view of that other group. And the good example over at Southern Poverty Law Center is they've lately decided that Moms for Liberty is a hate group. And so they say, well, these folks, these moms who oppose critical race theory at a school board, same as Klan. And that's what Senator Tuberville was trying to, and it was quite ineffective at doing it. But he's trying to say is you're taking a word with a common definition, and then you're applying that definition to folks that don't fit it to score cheap political points. That's unequivocally true. That absolutely happens. And we should stop playing that game. We just have to say no. The moms I know that affiliate with Moms for Liberty, that are at the school board and say, I don't like critical race theory, they're not wanting a white ethno state. They don't. That's just not a thing. And folks know this, right? But when you can scare people and you scare them into believing that really the Klan just got a different face and they're hanging out at school board meetings, that's politically powerful. Let's call it for what it is, because fear drives people far more than policy, good arguments, rational thought. Think about it. What drives you to the polls? What makes you say, oh, yeah, I'm going to support this candidate? I'll use an example for Trump. You know what drove people to the polls for Trump in 2016 more than anything else on this planet? No, it wasn't Hillary Clinton. It was the Supreme Court. It was, if the court goes further to the left in sort of a living document constitutional viewpoint, America will be changed forever. What you care about will no longer exist. The America we know is over. That was the argument. It was very, very powerful. Boatloads, and I mean boatloads. I spoke at Shades Mountain Baptist Church in Alabama, and I could feel it. This was before the election. There were a lot of folks that were like, I'm a Christian. I'm not sure about this guy's character. I'm talking about Trump here. Not sure about, his mannerisms, the way he carries himself, but like, the Supreme Court is so important for life, for other issues that we care about. And I could watch them just kind of squirming because they felt uncomfortable, and that it was like, we care so much about these issues, and this guy is pledged to do the thing on the issues that we want, but his personality, man. And that's what drove him to the polls. That's what made him pull the lever for Trump when they were sort of like, I don't know. Now, there's some folks that just they like to watch the world burn. They love the entertainment value of Trump. And anybody who's telling you that Trump is not entertaining is insane. That dude knows how to work a crowd. He knows how to set off the media like a genius. I'm serious. And this is somebody who calls balls and strikes when it comes to Trump. Y'all, you guys know that. Y'all who've known me over time. Like, I don't work for politicians. I don't, unless I actually am employed by them. Presently, I'm not. But I don't worship them. They work for the people. That's always going to be my position. It will never change. But to watch Trump work the media, it's crazy even now to watch a CNN and some of these other groups talk about how they have to cover Trump events. They're like, there were no people at this event. This was, I think they were covering a Dairy Queen in Iowa or something like that. And they're like, there was nobody there. Why are you there? Well,
what are you doing?
We don't know. We have to. Are we contributing to this? Yeah, of course you are. This dude is working you, and he is great at it. And so watching these organizations, it's almost like Stockholm syndrome or something. They're like, they've fallen in love with their captor. I mean, they're really struggling with this notion of we hate him so much. The left media hates Trump so much, but he's like a compulsion for them. When he says something or does something, they've got to show up and cover it. And it's not because anybody's forcing them to do it. It's because it's what they do. And it's weird. It's super weird. But that's the kind of games and stuff they play. And we just need to be sober about it. And particularly politicians, if you're going into the lion's den, you'd better be prepared. And Senator Tuberville going on an interview with Caitlin Collins. First of all, she's an Alabama fan. He's an Auburn coach. This was obviously hostile just based on that.
It's not a good foundation.
No.
That's not where we want to start.
No, but he knew that this was not going to be a friendly. And I can tell you as somebody who's got a mic in front of my face, if you call into this show right now, I'm in control. When you're an interviewee on Caitlin Collins' show, guess who's in control? Because she's used to it. She's comfortable in the environment. She knows what's going on. She knows where she's taking it before you ever do. And so folks in those positions, one, they have a responsibility to not be jerks and not hurt people, but they also have a lot of leverage. They can take you down roads you do not want to go. And if you're not equipped, you're in trouble. And I'm telling you, as somebody who's worked in Congress, I've worked in the House, worked in the Senate, worked in leadership, media training for our leaders is really helpful. Sit them down in a room. I've done it with 1,000 different candidates, with sitting politicians, and just pepper them with questions until they get comfortable answering on the fly. And I get it. You guys get frustrated sometimes when some folks on this station are doing an interview with Marsha Blackburn or somebody else from the Tennessee delegation and they give non-answers, right? Well, what they're doing is reflecting that training that, hey, when I'm in the hot seat and I want to think about it a little more, I need to buy myself some time. There's nothing wrong with that. That's totally okay. Or if I haven't made up my mind about an issue, I'm not going to just put out a hard and fast position and tell you that's what it is. I'm going to kind of hedge a little bit. That's all training. That helps them to communicate effectively with their constituents. And when people can't do that, they get stuck. And I would tell, it's fine if you want to go dance, if you want to deal with hostile folks. I do it on the air sometimes. You know, folks say, Cameron, you're the worst. And I'm like, okay, let's talk. I deal with it, you know, with my writing, with other stuff. But I know what I'm getting into. And I'm prepared. And I know when to cut my losses. Because sometimes I'm just wrong, right? Sometimes I have a wrong opinion or perspective, and I need to be able to say, you know what? Messed up. I'm going to press pause, say, you know, that's not what I really mean. And when you have 1 minute or 2 minutes to do it, it's real hard to backtrack. And that's what happened here. And so we're explaining again that Republicans aren't white nationalists. I mean, and we shouldn't have to do that. That should not be the conversation. Lena made a point on the Super Talk text line, and this is really important. She said, well, are you not doing the Democrats' bidding by talking about this topic and how Republicans have got to do better. No, I'm not. And here's why. I want Republicans and conservatives to do better. I want them to win. So just like with my football team, when I coach youth football, I tell those folks, hey, you're not doing this quite right. You're blocking a little differently. You're stepping with the wrong foot. It's not because I don't like them. It's not because I want them to fail. It's because I want them to succeed. And so the folks that listen to this station, now there's some centrists, there's some folks on the left that are kind of interested to, see what the conversation's like. But a lot of you guys are conservatives and a lot of you guys are Republicans. And so my comments here are because I want to make us better. I want to challenge you. It's not a hatred or enmity. I'm not a self-loathing conservative. I believe in limited government, free markets, the rule of law, religious liberty, the Second Amendment. I mean, these are anchor beliefs that I have, but earning the right to govern really matters. And so when you hear these critiques, don't take them as it comes from a place of deep affection and love, not from a place of, well, I don't like, because I know you guys. I can talk about Joe Biden being weird and old and hair sniffing and stuff, and y'all laugh and we'll have a good time. I don't know that it, necessarily does a whole lot, because it's just affirming what you guys already know. And, it feels good, right? But feel good and make progress. We got to make progress. We also got to take a break. I'm Cameron Smith, and I appreciate you being here. You're listening to Super Talk 99.7.
Well, prices for the stuff we buy still high, but slowing down. Russia's responding to the latest type of weaponry the U.S. is announcing for Ukraine, and federal regulators threatening the makers of THC gummies and edibles. These stories and more at 10 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Welcome back, y'all. That was a fun hour. I really appreciate you joining the conversation. I'm looking at my show notes, and I'm glad you guys can't read these, or y'all would think that I have schizophrenia or some other real challenge. Just wanted a little teaser about what's coming up. First of all, Wendy, I'm invested in the Lawrence County 8U All-Stars at this point.
Yes.
I am. I've been following this. I need to know what happens. I love youth sports, so this is important. They dominated and won in the state tournament. Now they've got the Southeast Regionals hosting in Lawrenceburg against North Carolina tonight.
Come on.
So Lawrence County 8U All-Stars, y'all go get them, boys. Go get them. I'm very excited.
Woo.
The other random things, they're not random. I've had thoughts about them, and I want to have discussions about them with you. DeSantis. It just says DeSantis. What's going on there, bud? I feel like we're flagging a little. I feel like it's not great. We've got the Hillary Clinton on Threads, cocaine, Prime Days, the Ray testimony, all coming your way in the next hour or two. I don't know how much we're going to get through, but I want you to be part of the conversation. I'm Cameron Smith. I'm now hosting Chris's show, and you're listening to Super Talk 99.7.
$10 on the dot. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Full forecast coming up in 2 minutes. Prices for the things we buy are still high, but the rate at which they're rising slowed down for a 12th straight month in June, 3%. Alexis Christoforous has the latest Consumer Price Index report.
When you look at what rose and what didn't, shelter, rent prices continue to be a problem for Americans. That was the biggest contributor to the rise in inflation that we saw last month. Also, motor vehicle insurance and food prices increased a bit, but we've really been getting a lot of relief at the gas pump. Gas prices are down. Overall energy prices off about 16.5% compared to this time last year. So that's good news.
War on Ukraine. Russia responding to the plan to ship U.S. cluster bomb weaponry to Ukraine.
Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov says the possible use of such munitions is a game changer and Russia will respond. He also reiterated Moscow's long-standing opposition to Ukraine's potential membership in NATO, calling it an offensive, not defensive alliance that, in his words, brings only aggression to the world.
That's Tom Rivers reporting from London. Well, orders are up after the first day of Amazon's annual Prime Shopping event. The average order by Tuesday was $56 compared to $52 on day one of last year. More women than ever before are active in the workforce. The Labor Department says more than 77% of women ages 25 to 54 were either working or looking for work in June. And federal regulators giving the makers of THC gummies and other edibles a deadline to meet or face their wrath.
At first, maybe even second or third glance, the red bag containing THC-infused Doritos nacho cheese chips made by a company called Dr. Smoke looks strikingly similar to the package containing actual Doritos. Same for the look-alike edibles packaging, nearly identical to Cheetos, Jolly Ranchers, Nerds, and Oreos. The Food and Drug Administration and the Federal Trade Commission worry that kids will mistake the THC products for the non-THC products, and they've sent letters demanding that the edibles companies change their marketing by 1 week from today.
That's Jim Ryan reporting, and the latest news. Weather is next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
Welcome back, y'all. If you happen to be tuned in to Dan Mandis' show, you learned that Chris Hand will be joining 9 to noon in this time slot as the regular host. Very excited about that. All right, Chris has been here before in different roles, and I wish him the best. I think he'll do great. Yours truly will continue writing and being the man off the bench that I am. And I appreciate my friends over at Thanks in Franklin for letting me guest host from time to time. It's I love it. I love you guys. And Lena made a good point on the Super Talk text line. It's 615-737-9986. That's 615-737-9986. Talking about some of the challenges of working through these conversations with conservatives and Republicans, because the point of bashing, like when we start throwing haymakers at each other and saying, well, the rhinos or the MAGA people or blah, 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 and then start fighting, it's destructive, right? Like, I get that. But that's functionally different than saying, hey, I care about the future. I care about the future of the Republican Party. I care about the future of conservatism. I care about America's future. And so when I disagree with you guys or you disagree with me, we need to have the ability to have that conversation. We need to have that exchange and work through it, because the friction of those exchanges makes us stronger. It makes us better. That's what Republicans have to figure out how to do more effectively, because right now, you know, the never Trumpers act like babies. The always Trumpers act like babies. It's like, how can you not see? How do you not know? How could you disagree with my righteous position? Well, guess what? Get over yourself. I'm right sometimes. I'm wrong other times. Sometimes it's just a matter of preference and opinion, right? Somebody who says, hey, I'm never going to vote for whoever, or I'm always going to vote for them, that's their vote. It's their choice. It's fine. But we got to be able to kind of work through that and get to the point of agreement. Lena and I have done that this morning on the Super Talk text line, have that back and forth. And again, if y'all think that I'm just bashing, you know, and saying about any candidate, about any politician, about any listener, and I'm not doing it right, tell me. I want to get better. I want to be better on the air. And truthfully, your feedback and how you engage me helps me when I go write columns. It helps me when I'm on the air. And I know that Chris and Matt and Brian and Dan and everybody else in the station like that feedback because it makes us better. And if we're going to be successful going forward, we have to do two things: learn to work together, and two, not give up. And I see on the super text line, I see it all the time. Well, the left is going to skew this. They're going to lie. They're going to, okay. Does that mean you're going to give up? I think that can't ever be the answer. We can't ever say, well, I'm not going to vote because the left is going to do bad things. Well, the answer to that is we need to vote. Well, I'm not going to keep my mouth shut. I'm not even going to say anything because it's not worth it, because the woke ideology everywhere, it's just too much. The answer to speech you don't like is more speech. Don't give up. And understand that. I understand how easy it is for conservatives, for Christians, for folks who look at the culture and say, man, this is not great. We don't like the direction some of this is headed. Well, if it matters to you, invest, engage. I told my boys this. I got 3 boys, 3 bio boys. We foster. We got all kinds of people in our house. We just have a house full of people. What I was telling the boys in my house was that you got 3 things in life: time, talent, and treasure. Okay? Those are the 3 things that you have. Not everybody has the same things, but everybody has some of those things. If Mac has $1 in his pocket, he's still got treasure. He just doesn't have a lot of it, right? It's just, that's a little bit. If he's got time, somebody else might not have time. That's just the way this works. And how you use that determines what you value and what you care about. But if you want to shape the future, you got to use what you got. There have been times where I remember being dirt poor. I remember not having, having to make some really tough financial choices. I remember times when we had more money. I remember the times where I was busy and gone all the time and times where I had plenty of free time. I mean, all of these things change over time for most of us, up and down, and that's kind of the way they work. But at the end of the day, if you want to make a difference, that's what you need to do. You have to use those things for what you care about in the future you want to shape. And if you're letting somebody else shape it for you and you're complaining about it, you deserve what you're going to get. And that stinks, but like, I want to compete. I always want to compete for the future, and all of you should too. And if you think, well, you know, I'm older, I'm washed up, I'm retired, I don't have a role. No, that's not true. You have the same 3 things you always had in different quantities. Use it. Go mentor some kids, teach some kids, get out there, foster parent, find ways to have an impact rather than being upset about the way things are going. End of my little riff on that. I'm also, just so you guys know, I'm watching Christopher Wray testify before the House Judiciary Committee. I'll give you a basic summary right now. Republicans are loaded for bear, and they're going after him about politicization in the DOJ and all of that stuff. Democrats are saying this is a political stunt where Republicans are just trying to score points. I suspect that will be the way it is for the rest of this hearing, but it is on, and I appreciate you guys bringing it up. That's absolutely something that's going on. What I've found on these type of things, trying to live comment while these hearings are going on almost never works well. It's better to let the thing happen, kind of pay attention, and then go look at the transcript, look at the comments, look at the different exchanges, and have those conversations after the fact. And I'm sure Matt Murphy is thinking about that right now. We've got a Cougar Chow mentioning on the Super Talk text line.
Wow. Lovely.
If Cougar Chow, that's our nickname for Mac, by the way, if he only has $1 in his pocket, older women ain't going for that. Sorry, Mac. If you only got $1 in your pocket, the older ladies, they don't want to.
I thought that's why I went to the older ladies, though. They got the treasure.
Hey. Okay, Max. Jason, I'm sorry to tell you, but Max already got this figured out. Super Talk text line 615-737-9986. You can call in or you can text in. Appreciate you guys when you text in and let us know what's going out on the roads and what's happening out there. Bad crashes, shutdowns. That helps us know what's going on. DeSantis.
Ooh.
Okay. I have made the argument for a while on the air and in writing. Just the tail of the tape. DeSantis is basically a Trump clone without the baggage. Like, why would, and I've said, well, why would you support Trump if you don't, you have a DeSantis? That argument maintains. It's still true. But I've told you, when I'm right, I'm right. And when I'm wrong, I'm wrong. And this one is sort of like a, let's wait and see. But I got to be honest. I mean, DeSantis does not seem to be gaining the momentum, right? He had stumbles out of the gate. You know, we've seen news headlines that are coming out that saying the Murdochs and some of the super donors are asking questions and sort of like, I don't know what's going on. I pulled up the Real Clear Politics, and I get it, folks. Polling is an art, not a science. But what I do try to do is find averages of polls. They can still be wrong, but they give you a little bit clearer of a picture. And I literally clicked refresh just now, and the Real Clear Politics averages look like this. Trump, 52.6%. DeSantis, 21%. Pence, 6.3%. Haley, 3.5%. Scott, 3.3%. Christie, 2.5%. Ramaswamy, 2.5%. And then after that, does it really matter? You got Hutchison, Elder, Burgum, whatever. The 0.1% for Burgum. I like the guy. He seems really interesting. It's just North Dakota isn't exactly a populous state where you drive a lot of activity. I stand by my comments that a de facto incumbent at roughly 50% is not inspiring, right? That means half your own party is looking for somebody else. But the fact that DeSantis has basically just hung out there and he seems kind of stuck, I got to call it what it is. I mean, he's stuck. And I think until there's some real, I don't want to say fighting because Lena was making a fair point. I don't want to see Republicans eviscerate each other. But you got to go after Trump, honestly. Trump's the front runner. He is. So if DeSantis or anybody want to go to win this thing, they got to go through Trump. And I think we should be sober about that. And so the idea of the Pence strategy of saying, well, he's not going to be or in the Mike Pence cadence, he's not going to be the nominee. I mean, Mike, you got to speed it up, man. Like,
Let's go. Come on.
I have thoughts about Trump and where America should. Really, Mike? Come on. Anyway, you got to go through Trump. That's just the reality. And I did see a headline where DeSantis made an important choice, I think. Some of the super PACs that support DeSantis had suggested that if Trump didn't debate, he wasn't going to debate. I thought that was a huge error for DeSantis. I think it's a huge error for Trump. It's sort of like saying you have your biggest strength, your best skill, and you're not going to put it on display. Trump said, I'm out. I don't want to do it. I think DeSantis saying, nope, even if he doesn't, I'm still in, enables the sort of schism to form of, okay, Trump thinks he's got this locked up. The rest of the field's going to try to earn your vote. And if that plays out, I think you do see some momentum shift. But this is the question that I've got for you guys out there in listener land. Who, if it's not Trump, I already know. I've looked at the information. Everybody's second choice is DeSantis. Even like Trump voters, their second choice is DeSantis. So it looks like it's sort of two people right now. What has to happen for Pence, Haley Scott, Christie, Ramaswamy, that's probably it, to get to where they can sort of pull all the vote together and challenge Trump? Scott's had some momentum. He's just momentum from 1 point to 3 points is good. That's a several 100% increase. It's just not altogether useful to be at 3.3%.
Is it debates?
I think so, because debates, I think there's one here in July that
I think so, yeah.
The debates, when they start, it puts these candidates together on TV, and you see that and you're like, oh, I should start paying attention. Right now, and I've mentioned this before, at this point in the last election, or in the 2016 election, Trump was at like 6%. Like the idea that somebody's at 6, 3, whatever, that they can't win isn't true, because most people right now aren't really paying attention. And because Trump's got the name ID, former president, all that stuff, that this is the way it looks, and it's fine. But I got to figure out a reason that I'd want to go with somebody else. And that's just me being honest. I mean, that's uncomfortable, but it's okay if DeSantis isn't a guy. And I'll be the first to say I want younger. I've got a young family. I want presidential candidates. I want representatives that are younger, that have families like mine. Like, and I understand other folks may say, no, I want a seasoned senior statesman. That's fine. Like, okay, cool. But what I've seen with Joe Biden is that, like, 80, man, it's hard.
Yeah.
And I want to be respectful, because I do respect the office of the president. But when the Atlantic, this is not remotely conservative, comes out and is like, hey, Joe Biden, nah, let's not run, then that needs to happen. We've got to take a break. We'll come back. We'll keep discussing this, and I want your thoughts. You're listening to Super Talk 99.7.
Russia is responding to the U.S. intention to ship cluster bombs to Ukraine. And we've got a brand new report on inflation to tell you about coming up at 10:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
And don't we love a good inflation report?
Yeah.
I mean, we need a much better one. I mean, good grief.
It's been going on long enough, man.
Yeah, seriously. Going to the grocery, it's like just the price of protein. I have boys in my house that consume large amounts of food.
Yeah.
Good grief. And I literally, it's just, it blows my mind that cuts of meat that like we didn't really eat are now as expensive as like ribeyes.
Yes.
And the ribeyes are like $15, $20 a pound.
Yeah.
And I don't know if cows got fancier or what happened, but dang. And this is, don't worry though, we had the Inflation Reduction Act. It was enacted into law, so everything's fine. It seems obvious. But I'm looking forward to it. I'm very excited to hear more about inflation. Y'all join the conversation, 615-737-9986. Keith made the point on the Super Talk text line that we got time on this figuring out the nominee, that sort of thing. And I think that's true. But I got to see something. Mac looked up. The qualifying, I think, was July 2nd, maybe, for the debate. But the debate's actually in August. So I think that will help us and introduce us to some of the candidates, certainly the ones that are on the debate stage. That will then, not necessarily, but more or less set the field as to who's going to be there. And again, it's okay to have different preferences here. We got to stop this notion of, hey, I like Trump, so I am somehow your enemy because you like DeSantis. Or I like Tim Scott and you like DeSantis, so you're the enemy. This is literally a preferences thing, folks. It's I prefer this candidate, so I will vote for this candidate. And it's figuring out what gives us the best chance to beat Joe Biden. Don't lose sight of that. I keep saying it because I know where the polling is on what Republicans think. And a lot of what Republicans think right now is I want somebody who thinks more like me than somebody who can beat Joe Biden. And I'm just telling y'all, that sounds insane. That seems like such a bad idea. And so we'll see how this all shakes out. But we're in a weird situation right now. And I mean really weird. Have y'all noticed that one of the most secure buildings in the world, the White House, we can't figure out who owns a bag of cocaine? Y'all saw in here where somebody was putting Klan flyers on people's cars and their license plate got tagged and we were able to find that person. Incidentally, in a public space, you can say a lot of offensive things, including the things that they're putting on those flyers. I don't necessarily see, I'd be interested to see the legal theory about charging that guy with a crime. However, he got caught. Like he's gonna get caught. They're gonna find out because they have all the pictures and cameras and everything in the White House. There's apparently a briefing happening right now, or here very shortly, where the Secret Service is going to brief members of Congress on why they can't figure out whose cocaine this is. It's the White House. Do you know? Some of y'all have gone and toured the White House and done a little walkthrough and stuff. You have to submit everything. They know the moment you walk in that building, the moment you walk out. They just do. For example, I've been privileged to have lunch at the White House. And again, you tag in, you tag out, you are escorted the idea that this is just, well, somebody strolling through the White House and left a little cocaine. That's nuts.
So you'd think it'd have to be someone more high profile then.
More high. Yes, I do. Yes, I do. I do think it has to be somebody that is a little bit, has more access, right? Because, for example, when I worked for congressional leadership in the House, you have different ID badges. And mine would allow me essentially like a step below member access, so I couldn't go up to like the Dome of the Capitol by myself, but I could kind of go wherever else I needed to, even at night, right? And so when it's close to the public, I could still move around. There's still security there. There's still cameras, and you still know who's there, right? Like you have the ability, and I should back up a little bit. You don't have to scan in and out in Congress, right? Like you don't tap your ID badge to get in and out. At the White House, you absolutely have visitors badges and stuff like that because it's more secure. And so the fact that we're in a position where the DOJ can investigate wide-ranging things, they can, I just saw that they charged somebody as being an agent of a foreign power who was one of the Republican whistleblowers. You can figure that out. You can't figure out who's got cocaine in the White House. We got some problems. And I'm not, it's funny to joke about Hunter Biden and being his cocaine or whatever. My point is you should get to the bottom of this. And it's just, and I said this last week, it's more evidence of just how sloppy the White House is. That this is something that if you find some of that, you deal with it, you figure out who's the knucklehead that brought that to work, you escort them out of the building, and this doesn't ever get into the media. Period. Right? Instead, they're so disorganized. They're like, what is this? What's going on? Maybe it's anthrax. No, one of your coworkers or somebody else brought in cocaine to work. Bad idea, frowned upon, regardless of what your circles are. Even at places where they're bagging cocaine, they don't want you doing the cocaine at work. So, this is, it exasperates me that this is the story about our White House. This is our projection of power to the world. Hey guys, we don't know whose cocaine it was in. This would be like Putin being like, I don't know whose meth this is in the Kremlin. Like, I don't anticipate that story ever coming out. All right, we got to take a break. You're listening to Super Talk 99.7.
I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Full forecast in 2 minutes. Russia responding to the U.S. intention to ship cluster bombs to Ukraine. The Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov says it and possible NATO membership brings only aggression to the world. Meanwhile, President Biden today publicly acknowledging the plan.
I hope we finally have put to bed the notion about whether or not Ukraine is welcome in NATO. It's going to happen. You're all moving in the right direction. I think it's just a matter of getting by the next few months here.
Yeah, but nothing concrete. The benchmark report on inflation in the U.S. showing signs that those high prices on just about everything are coming down. The Consumer Price Index showing prices last month rose just 3% compared to last year. And right now in Middle Tennessee, Franklin police reaching out to the Hispanic and Latino community to encourage more victims in the soccer coach rape case to come forward. News 2 talked to Anel Flores, who runs Hispanic and Latino-themed websites and social media pages.
Pretty sure that we will have more people coming, talking with the police.
Police say they've identified 3 victims, but dozens more remain. That's the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
Hi, I'm Paul Winkler. What's one of the biggest mistakes that I find that investors make? Well, it's typically buying based on past performance. We look at our 401k, we try to decide which fund should I buy, and tend to look at historical past performance over 3, 5, and you even hear investment advisors telling people to look at 3, 5, and 10-year track records. Problem is that what do markets do? They go up and they go down. Well, where did this have a great past performance? Here to here. So we end up buying high. We found that there was one study back in 1986, and it was called the Brinson-Hooden-Biebauer study. And they were looking at what drove investment returns more than anything else. And the study sort of looked like this. They said, stock selection, about 4% of investment differences were due to stock selection. About 2% was due to market timing differences. Asset mix, asset allocation, that was the big deal. Now, what they found, which was fascinating, was that when the pension plans engaged in these two activities, in one study it showed that 100% of the time, investment returns were lower and it increased risk. Not something you want when you're an investor. So this is something that we teach investors to help them sidestep some of these issues. Now, if you want to learn more about our approach to investing in financial planning, go to paulwinkler.com and set up a free 15-minute phone call. Or you can call 615-851-1950.
I love me some Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Oh, come on. Yeah, right? Who doesn't?
Okay, so let me see. Lead singer's Anthony Kiedis.
Oh, here we go.
Is that right?
I think so.
I think we should check that out. Sometimes the internet produces some great stuff. I've got Mac processing the latest Kamala Harris.
You're correct.
Words usage. I don't know if the Biden folks are trying to make her look dumb. She's done well in her career, and she was Attorney General of California. She been a prominent politician, but man, when she's out speaking and riffing just live, I mean, she makes Senator Tuberville look eloquent. I mean, it is truly just word salad. And I don't know what's going on, but I feel like, again, maybe she's not your best front person with media stuff, but I guess they don't have too many options. Like putting Trump or putting Biden out there or Harris, or my favorite is Buttigieg when he's out there and he's, well, I guess we had another derailment. You know, these things happen. They're statistically rare. You know, the planes aren't flying. But that just happens. The planes sometimes don't fly. I'm like, you may be the worst transportation secretary in the history of the world. If I know your name as the transportation secretary, you're doing it wrong. Most people could not tell me the transportation secretary under Trump. They can't. But they can tell me Buttigieg because every time he's standing there with a pile of train cars and saying, well, these things happen. And that's weird. I got to know. I've been looking at it. Troy's been patient, and he's got Elvis. Troy, you got to help me out here, man. I'm seeing Elvis. What are we talking about?
Oh, thanks to 1 Hour Heating and Cooling, they talk about Elvis impersonators.
Mm-hmm.
I saw Elvis in my backyard amongst the trees looking like bird watching.
Yeah, that's not Elvis, man. That's probably a creepy neighbor. Yeah,
that is who left the cocaine in the White House.
Oh, okay. It was Elvis. I got it.
Yes.
Okay.
We know he was a drug addict, right?
Yes, we've heard that. And
we know. Tell me I'm wrong.
Troy, I appreciate the call. I suspect it wasn't Elvis. I suspect the Biden administration. The truth is out there. The truth is out there. I'm an X-Files kid. I know that. They're struggling. They're struggling. Okay. You never. In fairness, if I just encountered, here in the studio, there's a sandwich bag of white powder. My first inclination would be like, what is this? My second would be like, I'm just going to leave that right there and just probably move on. But if I'm
not going to touch that.
Yeah, that's gross. We should probably throw that away. Somebody's eating powdered sugar again. But I probably wouldn't know what to do. My first reaction would not be to panic and assume it was anthrax. I might let somebody know there's a bag of a white powdery substance in the studio. But again, I don't think my reaction as somebody here at Cumulus versus the Secret Service, they should have a lot more tools to solve this. Like, I could probably just ask, like, does this belong to anybody? And then we could kind of, by process of elimination, kind of figure out where it came from. But we would mostly just be disappointed that it wasn't a snack. I mean, Matt's wife brings snacks sometimes. She's great. Erica does
she does, yes.
Great best. Snacks. There's a lot of snacks that happen here. And if I found a bag of cocaine and realized, it's not a snack.
Powdered sugar.
I thought it was puppy chow, and it's not. It's just cocaine. And that's what would happen here. So as Mac's looking at that Kamala Harris thing,
groundbreaking stuff here. Groundbreaking stuff.
Groundbreaking. Let me know when you get that ready.
Yeah, I've got it.
Oh, well, then let's just go.
I mean, honestly, the fact that we're keeping this wisdom and insight from the listeners is, I just feel like
this
selfish.
Correct me if I'm wrong, this is Kamala Harris on transportation.
Yes, this is.
Let's go. Let's do it.
Your work, this issue of transportation is fundamentally about just making sure that people have the ability to get where they need to go. It's that basic.
Yep.
And
transportation is getting people where they need to go. Insightful. I just, come on. I don't want to pull these things. What's funny is that's one of the more coherent clips. It's just, she's stating the obvious, right? She's buying time. The processor's working. And she's like, what should I say next? We are in an environment where transportation is a necessity to move from one place to, like, I already know how this conversation goes because I've heard her a million times. She is not the answer. What's interesting, I Googled to try to find an article for you guys. The Atlantic, Joe Biden don't run. That was my search inquiry. I see the progression over there at The Atlantic. The Atlantic is definitely left of center. It's definitely a more liberal publication. Here's the 3 headlines in chronological order. April 25th, 2023. Joe Biden isn't popular. that might not matter in 2024. All right, they're sort of weighing it. June 16th, 2022, why Biden shouldn't run in 2024. They're all over the place. 5 days ago, step aside Joe Biden. And I'm like, you gave the reason in chronological order. I inverted them. They said why Biden shouldn't run in 2024. Then they said, well, he's not popular, but it might not matter. And then they said, step aside. This is the Atlantic. And the argument in the piece that it's Elliot Cohen's writing this piece is basically he's just too old. And I love this quote from the article. It says, quote, he also has no business running for president at age 80. I say that with considerable feeling, being in my late 60s and knowing that my 70s are not far off. He's honest and then gets to, I forget more things. And if my body does not hurt when I wake up in the morning, a little voice in my head asks whether I'm dead and do not yet know it. Wow. And this is and I've written a column analogous here that basically points to the science on aging. That, yes, everybody has a different baseline, but my baseline if I live that long, 70, 80 years old, will be a diminished version of my cognitive baseline where I am right now. That's science. I cannot maintain. And Cohen makes a good point in this piece. He says, 67, in my view, is the new 66. It is an American conceit that aging can be concealed, Botox, prevented, exercise, healthy eating, or ameliorated. Don't wake grandpa up from his nap. That's rubbish. Plenty of studies, all are available at the National Institutes of Health, document the impact of aging on memory, mental acuity, endurance, and basically even the increased chances of dementia. This is the Atlantic. This should be in Joe Biden's corner, being like Joe Biden, because they hate Trump, hate a lot of Republican populist folks. But they're like, no, this is bad. This is not a good idea. And ultimately, it's arrogance, right? It's, I'm just fine. I'm just fine. No, he's not. And when your own team is saying, we can see the capacity. You guys have seen it. You see it on social media. And as much as I would like to say, well, these are AI generated and, this is all fake news, it's not. It's the president of the United States who's looking extremely feeble and frail.
Where am I? What's going to happen to me?
And it's hard for me because I obviously am no fan of Joe Biden, but I'm also somebody whose grandfather died of dementia. I watched him do this for years. I watched his cognitive decline. And I see, I'm not saying Joe Biden has dementia. I'm simply saying I can see his decline because I've witnessed it before. That's something that I've seen, and it's tragic and it's terrible. And so to basically say, what we're going to do is we're going to keep pushing this. Keep pushing it until it breaks, because Harris is not ready for prime time, will never be. Michelle Obama says she's not running. Gavin Newsom looks like the guy from American Psycho. They don't have a really, really good answer here that can appeal to those swing voters. In a sense, they have some of the same problem that Trump has, is the appeal to those independent voters to win the election. Joe Biden's probably the only, what I'd call top-tier candidate that can do that right now. I've said this for a long time that if Michelle Obama jumped in the race, she would be very tough to beat. Very tough. But it doesn't appear that she's going to do that. And Gavin Newsom, he speaks California. Nobody is really saying this is great. You look at his track record, you look at stuff that's happening in California, and nobody's like, yeah, I want that for America. And he can communicate effectively. He just not, I just don't see him playing well in Ohio. I don't see the connection there. And look, Ronald Reagan was from California. The idea that a California governor or somebody from California can't do well nationwide is absolutely false. I just think Newsom is not perceived as centrist enough to win those swing votes. And I think that's probably what's kind of keeping the logjam over there at the Democratic Party. But Gavin Newsom's running around like he's going to run for president. That tells me that Joe Biden, if Joe Biden was the Joe Biden from 1996 and he was the incumbent president, we would be having none of these conversations. It would just be, he's the guy, period, right? Incumbents that have clout don't get challenged. That's my whole point about Trump, too. He's a de facto incumbent that half the party's looking for another option. I think the Democratic Party's doing the same thing right now. I think the Democratic Party's looking over at Joe Biden and saying, this is bad. If we stick with the same ticket, which I think they have to, right? I don't think they can run not Biden-Harris. Like, for them, because they play demographic identity politics, kicking her off and picking somebody else, a Gavin Newsom or some other candidate, I don't think they can do that. So they're looking at it saying, he's so old and so frail, he may not make it. He may die in office, and then Kamala Harris is the president of the United States. And then Republicans will have many terms after that because she'll finish out that term, and she is not ready for prime time. And so the Democratic power brokers have a real tough decision to make right now. How are they going to handle this? How are they going to handle what's in front of everybody and watching folks? I wrote an article that referenced this decline in Joe Biden, and several Democrats reached out like, how dare you? And I'm like, how dare you? How dare you ignore what you see with your eyes and ears? You've been telling Trump voters for years, hey, pay attention. It's not what he says, it's what you perceive. It's the fact that you know that what's reality is. Don't let a politician tell you what that reality is. And now I've got Democrats saying, Joe Biden's fine, everything's fine. He's not. It's obvious. And to suggest otherwise means you're not using your eyes and ears. You're not paying attention. Right now, I'm paying attention to the clock. We got to take a break. I'm Cameron Smith, and you're listening to Super Talk 99.7.
Here's some of what's going on in that House Judiciary Committee meeting in our nation's capital. The FBI director is on the hot seat. That's coming up at 11 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Welcome back. We're closing out hour 2. For those of you that missed the announcement, Chris Hand is going to take over this time slot as the regular. Hopefully he will not be irregular. But I'm excited. I think it's going to be great. Another voice in the stable, somebody who I think he's going to bring the fire. So I'm very
excited.
I'm very excited about that. And yours truly will be over at the Tennessee and USA Today Network, writing, talking. Matt and I are working on a couple projects. You can hear me on his show every Wednesday, and I'll keep filling in, and we'll have some fun conversations. Join in on the Super Talk text line, 615-737-9986. 615-737-9986. You can call in. You can text in. You made a really good point on the Super Talk text line that if nobody knows who the cocaine in the White House belongs to, what else is in there? That doesn't seem like a very secure situation. I think they do know. And y'all mentioned that as well. I think they do know. I think they're going to brief members of Congress. They're trying to figure out what to do about it. I don't see a world in which that's just sort of like left alone. Give Chris Olestra. There's a good example from earlier in the show. Give Chris Olestra. He will be regular. Ooh, buddy. The leakage. That's not a thing. We got, in the last hour, we got a lot coming up. We've got Hillary Clinton on the new threads begging newcomers to provide her some instruction. Prime days. There's a lot of weird stuff you can buy. For example, a squirrel finger puppet. I'm Cameron Smith. You're listening to Super Talk 99.7. Y'all come back.
Eleven o'clock on the dot. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. We'll tell you about the next best chance for showers and thunderstorms and the full forecast in 2 minutes. FBI Director Christopher Wray is testifying before the House Judiciary Committee in our nation's capital this morning. He's pushing back on Republican allegations that his agency uses its resources for political purposes to target conservatives.
Today's FBI leaders reflect the best of our organization, an organization that is made up of 38,000 men and women who are patriots, professionals, and dedicated public servants. And that is the real FBI.
Not if you ask Committee Chair Jim Jordan, who opened the hearing like this.
American speech is censored. Parents are called terrorists. Catholics are called radicals. And I haven't even talked about the spying that took place of a presidential campaign or the raiding of a former president's home. But maybe what's more frightening is what happens if you come forward and tell Congress.
And Jordan says the FBI, along with the Justice Department, mishandled the Hunter Biden investigation. In Money News, Alex Christoforous has details of today's Consumer Price Index report.
Inflation up 3% in June year over year. That was better than expected, and now to the lowest pace in about 2 years. Month over month, prices were up just 0.2%. That was also a little better than expected.
A 12th straight month of declines, 3% still above the Fed's target, so we might see another interest rate hike. Here in Middle Tennessee, Channel 4's Ryan Breslin says police in Columbia have released surveillance video of racist flyers being posted targeting historically black churches.
Pastor Kenny Anderson says he and dozens of church members are worried about their safety, but sadly not shocked.
More hurt than surprised, because we're living in a season of madness, letting hate build up in you so much to where you want to be divisive all the time.
Bethel Chapel AME Church and Faith United Missionary Baptist Church also had flyers glued onto their marquees. They will be joining Pastor Anderson tonight, standing against hatred.
Yeah, police ask if you have any information to call them. That's the latest news. Weather is next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. I'm Cameron Smith, and you're listening to Super Talk 99.7. Appreciate you guys joining the conversation. We're in our final hour. Some of y'all are getting hungry. I was getting hungry. I'm eating weird things these days. I'm more health conscious for a lowland mountain gorilla. I go to the gym on the regular.
Nice.
And actually really enjoy it. I love exercise.
Lifting, running, all of it?
So the running, I do. I do it on the, I don't even know what you call
elliptical.
it. Kind of, but it's lower impact because I'm old and the plodding.
Joints hurt.
Yeah, I mean,
Fair.
I got my Hoka dad shoes that are like a Tempur-Pedic mattress.
Yes.
So I'm running. I'm like, I can't feel anything. I'm walking on clouds. This is fun. But for those of you that are online, you can see this bag of almonds. No joke. Got these off Amazon, and they're sprouted almonds. And I didn't even know that was a thing. But I like the sprouted almonds better than the regular almonds. And, you know, you can get them in bulk at Amazon, and they're really good. And so I was munching on those during the break, trying to eat apples, healthy stuff. It's hard to eat healthy. Like
It's
it's
not
just
fun.
It's not.
No.
Like burgers are great.
Oh, so good. Pizza.
Right. And then it's like, can I put a burger in the pizza crust? Like, is that a thing? And that's where my mind drifts. And so the idea of I will have a handful of sprouted almonds is decided. I mean, they're good. Don't get me wrong.
No, it's good.
But it's just like, I am consuming calories to avoid consuming bad calories. So, you know, finding some stuff like that. I learned, I'm not sure this is actually healthy, but you know it's sweet heat potato chips, right?
Oh, yeah.
Love some sweet heats. Golden
Yes.
Flake, they're fantastic. I actually got to tour Golden Flake's facility in Birmingham and see how they were made. Not encouraging, but delicious. It's like, we're going to take these thinly sliced things and fry them to death and then put sugary spices on them. Like, okay, cool. Let's do it. But I realized, they make pork rinds. And so it's the same seasoning on a pork rind.
Oh, wow.
So, you know, less carbs, lower, you
Yeah.
know, and that's it's a snack option.
That's a win.
But the amount of protein that we got to eat, and this is why inflation just kills me, is it's like, we're going to eat chicken, we're going to eat pork, we're going to eat all of the different kinds of meat, and oh my goodness, how expensive. So I tell you what, though, we were at Sam's, got like 20 drumsticks for like $5.
Wow.
They were 98 cents a pound.
Whoa.
And I cooked them, and they were great, and they were crispy and wonderful. And basically, a drumstick is a buffalo wing that's bigger. And that's how I cook them. And they're great. And, you know, so I'll keep you guys in the loop on the lovely health journey. But we've been in the gym now for about about a year and a half that I've been going regularly.
Good, man.
And, you know, at Thanks in Franklin, very healthy colleagues who are encouraging you to exercise and work out. Now I'm at Cumulus, and everybody's doing like some sort of like, I'm looking at Bell and I'm like, where did you go?
I know, right?
There's so much less Bell. And I'll continue to say, it reminds me of Cranky Jesus. But it's great. I mean, it's really, really, it's something you guys should do. And I'm not just saying that to like browbeat you into it, but if I can do it and it can have a positive impact, then you should consider doing it. You should consider exercise. Go for a walk. It's not, you don't always have to have the like wild programs or plans, but do something. Take care of yourselves. I love having you guys as listeners and readers. And if you don't take care of yourself, it's very hard to read when you're dead. So let's encourage each other in that end. And I know it's hard, but again, I look like a bulldog when I run. It's not pretty. Nobody is excited about it. It's certainly not the treadmill that's like, stop, you're hurting me. But exercise is good, and it's fun, and it's great, and you should do it. And I'm trying to do it too. We've hit a number of topics over the last couple of hours, from cocaine to DeSantis to the debates to The Atlantic telling Joe Biden to step aside, Hillary Clinton being creepy. I wasn't joking when I was talking about Prime Days. This isn't a plug for Prime Days, but if you haven't gone to see the random stuff that Amazon sells on Prime Days, one of them got my attention and cracked me up because MyPillow Premium, it's got Mike Lindell there right on the cover, is 64% off. The My Premium pillows, they've had it rough, and now Amazon's got them. But they have all this stuff on there, like handheld fans, and they come with like these weird names. Like this is a great one. I don't know their actual brands, but they just got a word in front of them. For example, Matt and Dan might be interested in the A-Moron. I'm not making that up. You guys can see it. It's right here. A-Moron. A-M-O-R-O-N. Pickleball paddles, set of 2. A-Moron. So literally you've got your pickleball, I guess they're rackets. I don't know what they are. Matt knows. Dan knows. And it just says A-Moron right across the top. And they're awesome. There's so much random stuff that they're hawking. And I get it. It's not as exciting as many of the political topics, but I'm an addict. I love going on and looking at what is that? There's a portable fan, an inflatable paddleboard, some dog playpens, microfiber towels. Do any of y'all use microfiber towels? It always seemed like this great idea. Like, I'll get one of these very small towels that's very thin, but then I don't ever know what to do with it. I'm just carrying around a doily. I don't get that. All kinds of electronics, brackets, satin pillows. It's an electric pepper and salt grinder set. I want to know who's in for that. 36% off. Somebody's like, I'd like some salt on my food, but manually grinding it seems laborious. I'm not so sure about that. My favorite by far is the 62% off tortilla blanket. Literally looks just like a tortilla. And it's out there. If Dan's talking about pencils, 1, 2, 3, and 4, number 1, 2, and 3, 4 pencils, and toilet paper, I felt obliged to point out the random, you want a commercial home weightlifting rack, Prom Day. Random tents, sling bags, baby cameras, some dinosaurs, an epoxy resin kit. And I mean, I can just go on. It's literally like all the stuff in the world. And they call it Prime Day. And then you're like, well, I should probably, I need some elevated dog bowls for my dogs because reasons. And
that does sound nice for my dog.
How about a large colored pencil sharpener? The fact that it's like, do regular pencils work in the sharpener or just the colored pencils?
Just the huge ones.
Right. And, there's a resin printer. Yes, my wife said these are white elephant gifts for Christmas. So and if y'all played this game, it's fantastic. My family does it every year where everybody buys like a small, kind of like a gag gift. And then you might get 1 or 2 like nice ones. And you all pick a number out of a hat. Then you get to open in that order. And then you get to choose, do I want to steal a gift from somebody who's already opened it? Do I want to open one? And so that you keep doing that and steal, and things can only be stolen 3 times. So it's kind of like a strategy game. It's a lot of fun, but we get a lot of random gifts. Like a Japanese handsaw. My favorite, and I should have bought it. It was only like $3. You know the little finger puppets when you're a kid and you go to the dentist and they give it, you stuck it on your finger and it was like a little monster?
Oh, yeah.
Well, they had one that was a squirrel head and 4 feet. So you could like you could turn your middle finger into the squirrel's head and then have squirrel feet on your hand for like $4. And I'm like,
I'd have way too much fun with that.
right, what's happening here? It's sitting in my cart, and I'm like, how do I explain that to people that I wanted to turn my hand into a squirrel for fun and not feel like people need to call the cops and be like, this guy
needs help.
He is really weird. Involuntary commitment right here.
Make the quantity 2, and then they'll have to take us both.
Right. And then you get the 2 hands on either side of the head, like, ooh, hey kids, look at my squirrels. And that's just not a winner. But yeah,
concerning.
It's right there. It's something to entertain you. But it only comes around every now and then, and it's worth checking out purely for the entertainment value. What's less entertaining is this story, in fact, tragic, this story about this Franklin soccer coach. I don't know if you guys have seen this story, but apparently this was a case of a phone left behind. And folks got into the phone, and this was Camilo Campos's phone, according to the reporting. And it involved this individual allegedly recording himself raping unconscious boys between the ages of 9 and 17. In the last 24 hours, this is an update to this story, 5 victims they didn't know about have come forward. And this is right here. This is in our community, in our listening area. Basically, this is a situation where we have to be super careful. And I coach a lot of youth sports. And we need to talk about this because our culture's changed. There are some folks out here that are vile humans who will groom, prey upon, and do awful things to kids. And I've seen steps, like we're taking steps with Nolensville Youth Athletics, for example, and even the churches to kind of protect against this stuff. But this is real. This has happened in our community. And I want to talk about some of the effects of this and what this does to not only a child, but to a community, to trusting relationships between parents and coaches. I mean, there's a lot to unpack here. So instead of getting into it, I want to put a pin in it, take a break, come back, and let's unpack this story. I'm Cameron Smith, and you're listening to Super Talk 99.7.
Got a crash getting in the way in Robertson County. It is 24 westbound right after Maxey Road. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky wants some long-range missiles, and he might very well get them to help fight Russia. We've got that story and the latest economic indicator coming up at 11:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Welcome back, folks. I'm Cameron Smith. Thank you for joining the conversation. Thank you for your participation in the Super Talk text line, 615-737-9986. A loud hello to those of you on the video feed. And look, I got a couple comments on my shirt. Yes, what a time to be alive. We live in an era of boingy clothes. And you heard that?
Boingy?
Yeah, listen. See, you don't even have to see it.
The recoil.
It is some kind of recycled, I don't know, like recycled spandex or something. But it is not binding. It is wonderful. It gives and it boings. It boings. I
love it.
I don't have another word for it, but it's a great time to be alive. I see you people with your tortilla blankets. We're going to go back to Prime Day and discuss the things because you clearly were enjoying that. But the story that we were talking about is both tragic and important. And I wanted to make sure, I apologize for the whiplash, but I wanted to make sure that we got enough time to get it in before the end of the hour because the story is really important. What happened, we're talking about a soccer coach in Franklin, Tennessee who's accused of drugging and raping kids in significant numbers over a long period of time. Franklin, and this is from a WKRN.com article. Franklin police said they have uncovered hundreds of disturbing videos and photos on Camilo Campos's phone, many of which involve Campos recording himself as he allegedly raped unconscious boys between the ages of 9 and 17. And victims have continued to come forward now that this is posted on Twitter. I put out from @DCameronSmith. That's @DCameronSmith. That's my Twitter handle. I did hashtag TN Politics. I tweeted out this article because it also contains at the bottom the Franklin Police Department number, 615-794-2513, and an email address to reach out if you or your child had any association with Campos over the years. There were an overwhelming number of Latino kids who were impacted by this guy, but that's not the only background that was. So if you guys know who I am talking about, if your kid had interaction with him, apparently his nickname was Archundia. But in the soccer space, please reach out. Go check out that article that I tweeted. It's got basically the updated facts right now. But this is important, okay? This is, it's very hard. Every sports league, everybody now does background checks. I think those are okay. They're important. I do tons of them. The problem with them is when somebody doesn't have a record, they don't do anything. They don't. You can check them. It will say this is a person. If they have not been arrested and prosecuted for a crime, it's not going to show up. So I know that it's frustrating because we say, well, something's changed. And maybe that's true. And maybe, unfortunately, some of this stuff was happening and a lot of people suffered silently for a long time. That the abusers have always been around. But in this context, there are a couple dynamics at play. There were folks in Latino communities that didn't feel comfortable reaching out to the police. There's a lot of shame that comes with some of these type of things in these abusive situations between adults and children. Some of the training that I've had to do for my church, right? Church at Nolensville, which is a Brentwood Baptist Church campus, I think is what they call it. We did this training, and the training is actually kind of interesting, but it talks about how to identify grooming behaviors. When I do training, in fact, I've got to finish mine, for coaching Nolensville Panthers football. Again, there's a whole section in there on identifying grooming, behaviors to watch. If you see adults going off alone with kids, things like that, you got to say something. I would much rather a parent of one of the kids that I coach tell our league director, hey, I don't know if this is a thing, but, you know, I saw him go pick up some pads and there was a kid that followed him. I don't know what's going on. I would much rather somebody say that about me and have that conversation and say, oh, well, we walked around the corner, grabbed the pads out of the shed and came back. Then somebody see that and not say something. Like, and I know that sounds kind of weird because I've got boys in my home. I have to do so much training and so many things, but I want to be held accountable for my behavior too and how I treat kids. And I want parents to be watching.
And feel like they can speak up.
Yes.
And say something.
Yes. I'm not going to be mad. I'm not going to penalize a kid because a parent says, hey, I just saw something. I just want to make sure everything's cool. Absolutely. And then that tells the league director to watch. You know, if somebody comes to me at Nolensville Youth Athletics and says, well, this program director, I feel like they're getting a little close. And again, I want to be clear. This is a hypothetical. This has not happened.
No.
But if a parent did do that, we would respect it. We would look into it, and we would make sure kids are safe. And what happens in these type of situations and with this grooming behavior is they ply kids with things like alcohol, right? So you get an underage kid and you say, hey, let's go like have some fun. And these groomers go out and then the kid drinks alcohol, right? They get a little drunk. Not a crazy thing that has happened before to teenagers. Like teenagers act like goofballs. They go get drunk. But then the groomer says, I'm going to tell your parents. You'll get kicked off the team. You're going to get in big trouble. Now I need you to do inappropriate and illegal things. And then once that happens, they're like, can you imagine telling your parents? They're going to hate you. They're going to kick you out of the house. You won't ever be allowed to play anywhere in this community ever again. And then pretty quickly what happens is that kid is just, you got a snowball effect of horror that hurts these kids and leads to this situation where something like this could happen over years.
Yeah, 20 years in this case with Campos.
And you say, well, somebody should have said something. Yeah, I agree. But like when you do these trainings, which I'd recommend to anybody, ask. If you are in a sports league, you are involved with kids, ask for training. Say, hey, can you give me some resources so that we can learn about these behaviors, learn to identify them? You know what? You got to be careful. I don't carry on the kids that I work with. I love. I've known them for years. I care about them deeply. But I also know that you got to behave appropriately and look out for things. Like I don't text individual kids and have like text chains going with them.
It's a good rule.
I'll text their parents.
Of course.
And we talk, and I'll certainly talk to the kids. And I mean, I know some of these kids, I've known them for years, and their parents will be like, hey, I got to go run to the grocery or something. Can you watch them? Like, they trust me, and I trust them and appreciate that trust. But man, I don't need a 10-year-old's phone number. One, they don't need a phone anyway. But those type of exchanges, you got to be super careful with, because you know, kids want to know, they want to learn, they start asking questions. And the moment that a kid, because this happens too, a kid will ask a question, or I'll see something that doesn't seem quite right. Maybe they got bullied at school. I'll rope the parent back in and I'll say, hey, you know, I'm a little concerned about little Bobby. He just wasn't himself. Like, let's go talk. So it takes a whole community to see this stuff and like pay attention. And if a kid is normally like bright and exciting and, you know, just an energy ball, and then all of a sudden they're like really down in the dumps and they don't see themselves, and that can happen a little bit, but if it happens for weeks at a time, because I have, let's say with our football team in Nolensville, I have a couple practices a week. If I see it for a month, I'll talk to the parents. I'll let them know. I'll just say, hey, something's up, something's going on. Everything okay? Is there anything that I need to do? We'll keep talking about this for a few minutes. I see some calls, Super Text line. We'll get back to this on the other side of the break. I'm Cameron Smith, and you're listening to Super Talk 99.7.
I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Let's check traffic. Looks like we still have that crash blocking your way in Robertson County, and now westbound 24 is closed between Maxey Road and MLK Parkway because of it. Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky wants long-range missiles to fight Russia, and he might get them, according to what U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan tells ABC News.
President Biden will continue to discuss that issue with President Zelensky today. He has said he has been looking at it, and he continues to do so.
Earlier today, a Kremlin spokesman said Russia sees the U.S. intention of shipping cluster bombs to Ukraine as a game changer, and Russia will respond. Things getting better in flood-ravaged parts of Vermont, according to Governor Phil Scott.
As waters begin to recede, at least for the time being, we'll be surveying the damage done to infrastructure, homes, and businesses.
And despite the need for hundreds of rescues, there have been no fatalities so far in the Vermont flood. That's the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
Hi, I'm Paul Winkler. What's one of the biggest mistakes that I find that investors make? Well, it's typically buying based on past performance. We look at our 401k, we try to decide which fund should I buy, and tend to look at historical past performance over 3, 5, and you even hear investment advisors telling people to look at 3, 5, and 10-year track records. The problem is that what do markets do? They go up and they go down. Well, where did this have a great past performance? Here to here. So we end up buying high. We found that there was one study back in 1986, and it was called the Brinson-Huden-Biebauer study. And they were looking at what drove investment returns more than anything else. And the study sort of looked like this. They said, stock selection, about 4% of investment differences were due to stock selection. About 2% was due to market timing differences. Asset mix, asset allocation, that was the big deal. Now, what they found, which was fascinating, was that when the pension plans engaged in these two activities, in one study it showed that 100% of the time, investment returns were lower and it increased risk. Not something you want when you're an investor. So this is something that we teach investors to help them sidestep some of these issues. Now, if you want to learn more about our approach to investing and financial planning, go to paulwinkler.com and set up a free 15-minute phone call. Or you can call 615-851-1950.
Welcome back. As we wind down this wonderful show, I appreciate you guys very much from engaging in the conversation. I regret that we have to talk about a child predator. There's not another way to put it, who abused the trust put in him, allegedly. This whole thing started when somebody found his phone at a Marco's Pizza in Franklin, and was trying to figure it out to get it back to the guy, opened the phone, and then came across these images. And the tragedy here, obviously, this is awful, is that some of the victims, according to police and the reporting, were so drugged that they may not have even known that they were abused, which I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing for them in terms of the trauma. But that's why when I send the article around, hashtag TN Politics, you can go find it on my Twitter handle, the contact information for the Franklin Police Department's there. If your kid had any interaction with this guy in soccer, in the area, unfortunately, I would proactively reach out. This has happened for a long time. If you yourself had interactions with and you're not sure exactly what happened, but reach out. And I can't even imagine that scenario and the trauma that must be.
Mortifying.
Yeah, but it's not your fault. This guy is a creeper who's harming kids and abusing the trust placed in him. And so please reach out. That's where the article is. The contact information's there. They're looking for information. If this guy did what he's accused of, then they need all the help they can get to put him away forever. Because anybody that does this crap to kids, and in the foster system, we come across a lot of kids who have trauma. There's a reason they're in state custody, is something bad happened. And so you see this stuff, and the best thing that you can do when you see this, when you hear about it, when you encounter it, is say something. You don't have to save the day, but even this guy, he had a choice. He found this phone. They're grotesque images. He could have just pitched the phone and been gross. But he said, I'm going to call the police. This is messed up. And, this guy's going to hopefully get put away for it. And he's not going to be able to hurt other kids. And so please, please, please say something. The point on the Super Talk text line, I think it's fair. How is it alleged when there are pictures and videos? When I say alleged, what I mean is that this individual has not been proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt by a jury of his peers. That's why I'm saying that. I'm a lawyer by trade, and so I'm really careful here because this looks like an extreme indictment of guilt. It looks very negative for this individual, but I've seen weird cases where, hey, they got the wrong guy, they did some other stuff. It wasn't that person's phone. So I want to be real careful, and that's the reason I say alleged. It's not to hedge. It's not for me to say this doesn't look awful. It's a legal reality. So that's what I'm saying, and I want to be real clear so you guys can hear that and understand that. But, man, this is awful. And so I'm just imploring you, please, as coaches, as parents, do the training, talk, encourage one another to say something. It's not offensive for somebody to ask questions, for somebody to kind of raise the flag if something seems off. And that's coming from a guy that I try to conduct myself with a high level of character. I am very careful how I interact with minors, and because people trust me. And so I take that trust seriously. But if somebody has to ask questions or they want to ask questions, they should ask questions. They could call the league head. They can call other coaches. That's how you create a safe environment. And if coaches are well, I don't like people asking questions, then they shouldn't coach. You shouldn't be in that position where you get hurt and think you're being accused anytime anybody raises a flag or asks a question. That is safety.
Well, and make sure for yourself too, because in this case, Campos, over 20 years, I'm sure some of this, I know this family, interacted with him and he was a good coach for his kids. I'll get involved with them too. But check for yourself. Just because it was normal or regular for someone for years, make sure, do your due diligence. Like you said, Cameron, it's okay to ask questions.
Yeah, and just little policies that matter. Like, we have kids through our house all the time. Like, all the time. With my kids, of course, like, I'm alone with my kids because they're my kids. If there's another kid and it's just me and that kid for whatever reason, if it's just a timing thing, I go outside. Because what happens in behind closed doors or in a house, anybody can say anything, right? And so I just want to protect that for that kid and for myself, right? Like, just use common sense on this type of stuff. Put people in a position where they feel safe and then hold each other accountable. We've got Rich, who's coach. Rich, what do you got?
Hey, buddy. Is this the radio guy?
This is the radio guy, and you're on the radio.
Okay. I just wanted to put my 2 cents worth in.
Sure.
I feel like it's pretty ironic that the very people that are pushing the LGBT and homosexual movement upon America are now screaming about how horrible this is.
What?
I think that's...
Help me understand. Like, this is objectively horrible.
Well, the very people, the mainstream media, the government, and a lot of media that's not mainstream are scared to speak out and say anything against the homosexual lifestyle. And, it's the very ones that's pushing it down our throats that's saying, oh, this is so horrible. It's a terrible thing. I just think that's ironic.
Well, thanks, Rich. I appreciate the call. And I want to be real clear about this. I put a column out there. I actually disagree with Rich pretty passionately. And here's why. Because what's happening here is a child sex predator, an alleged one, but there's a lot of evidence that preyed on kids over years. Okay? That is criminal activity, unmistakable. We should call it out, and it is horrific. But to say, well, if somebody's gay or they're a lesbian or LGBTQ plus, whatever, so they're inherently condoning this is not responsible. That's not accurate. That's not fair at all. The folks who have different choices and different orientations, you're painting with too broad of a brush if you say, well, they're okay with child sex predation, because they're not. Unfortunately, there are some people who are child sex predators. I hope they get caught, and I hope they get prosecuted to the full extent of the law. But don't make the statement. This is like somebody saying, well, Cameron's Westboro Baptist because he goes to the church at Nolensville that's Baptist. Don't do that. Don't. Because I get it. I get the knee-jerk reaction, but it's not right. It's not fair. And I hear that. That's a thing, but I don't think anybody, I have not heard of anybody, I can't imagine anybody coming out and saying, well, actually, I condone this behavior and what this guy did to these little kids. Like, you got to be kidding me. Like, that's not a thing. I mean, just because somebody is gay does not mean in any way that they are saying what this guy did is acceptable. And we need to draw that line pretty bright, pretty clear, because we got friends and neighbors that you would be lumping in with a guy like this. No. Folks that are lumped in with a guy like this, they go to jail and they don't last long there. So I want to be real precise on that point. This is a tough one. I hate this because this is the one where I've seen it with church. I mean, we're doing, with churches, schools, all kinds of trainings and stuff to deal with a culture gone wild. And this is just awful. And so I would just implore you guys, please make sure that you're communicating, that you're careful, that you're engaging in a way that protects children and encourages them. Like, coaching is great. I'm not saying don't coach. I'm saying you have such an impact and you're in such a position of trust and responsibility that you've got to take it seriously. It's not just, do you have a great game plan? Do you win some sports games? It's these, let me put it this way. Every last one of you that can hear the sound of my voice that played youth sports can tell me about your coaches. You can. I know the names. I know how they treated me. I know that Lee Burbank would yell, back, 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 when we went too far and we're going to get thrown out at third base. Like, I know those coaches, and they had such an impact on me, so much of a positive impact. Gene Tortai. I know the names of the people who left an indelible impact on me, and so many of them, I mean, they're basically teachers and coaches. Like, my family members, teachers and coaches, shaped my development, and you got to have a trusting, safe environment. That doesn't mean you can't engage kids. It's just be smart, be responsible, be safe. We understand this. I'm trying to see, let's go ahead and let's take a break now and then wind out the hour. And I can probably get to maybe one or two more calls. I'm Cameron Smith, and you're listening to Super Talk 99.7. We're getting loud. Really loud. Really, really loud.
What?
That sound you hear, that loud, whatever that is, that's Matt Murphy's show coming your way. It's coming. And I know, first of all, cap on the last story, horrible child predation. I tweeted out the link. If you've had any interaction with this predator, alleged predator, go contact the Franklin Police Department. Please do that. So we'll put a pin in that one. The thing that's shocking that I'll lead into Matt's show with is the number of you that had purchased tortilla blankets. I'm going through Amazon. It's Prime Days, and we're going through the random stuff because, hey, a little bit of a slow news day.
What?
And
I'm leaving.
Out of the woodwork. You guys were like, actually, the tortilla blanket, it's quite comfy. Okay. I got the microfiber towels. Y'all told me these are actually great for cleaning. I thought they were for like wicking sweat or something. I don't know. But apparently
Probably both, yeah.
They're great for cleaning.
You want to get high?
Yeah. I don't know how you use a microfiber towel for that, but I'm sure somebody's figured it out. And
it's Towelly.
I'm just excited. I mean, a collapsible foldable wagon. I mean, who doesn't need that?
A tortilla blanket.
Yeah. Oh, and I needed you here to. Matt Murphy has joined the
What
show.
Mexicans call condoms.
I found something for you and Dan right here. Verify that.
That was for you, baby. What? Sorry.
Read the name of that pickleball set.
A moron pickleball paddles?
Yes.
It's legit.
That's good.
I so wish. Speaking of the pickleball, can I take over for a second? Hey,
Sure,
Cameron.
Go for it, Matt.
It's Prime Day. So this morning, we had the announcement that Chris Hand would be the permanent 9 to noon replacement. You've done a great job. And
Thank you.
And Cameron will still be a part of the radio station and everybody else, Pamela Furr and all these. But we had Chris Hand in. And so my wife, she does this for special occasions. She made snacks. And so she made Chex Mix. Like, she gets all of the various ingredients and she bakes it and she does the whole bit. And so I'm sitting over there and Dan is sitting where you're sitting. And I asked Dan off air, I was like, hey, would Riker want some snack? And he said, what? And he looked at me and I tossed it to him from right there to there. He never moved. He watched it come and he watched it hit him on the head. And I'm thinking, I'm going to destroy this guy in pickleball.
Yeah. Well, now you got a moron paddle for him that you can get on a steep discount.
Hey, they named it after you.
No. Ooh.
You're
like my kids.
I'm 12 now.
Yes, yeah. My boys
What
are
do you
like,
mean now?
Hey, Dad, you said moron. You said poot.
You said dingleberry.
You're stupid. I wish I could express upon the listening audience how weird it is to be the father of boys aged 9 to 14, where normal conversations are just always taken out of context and inappropriate. I literally in my own home cannot use any words to describe rigidity. So if I say it's hard, they're like, I just can't. I can't because they're going to make it super awkward. And my wife is just like, really, really stop. Like all the time. That's it. That's what I do. Like
stiff competition.
Right. You said stiff.
Yes, I did. Well, boys, whatever your sense of humor was when you were 13, that will be your sense of humor for the rest of your life.
Stuck.
And it has never not been funny when somebody looked at me and said, that's what she said. It's never not been funny.
That was making its way into the Smith family, and it's inappropriately used. Like, well, that's narrow and fragile. That's what she said. And I'm like, that's not how you do that. It's been a great show. Matt Murphy's next. I'm Cameron Smith, and you're listening to Super Talk 99.7.